Well, we are rolling right along to SEC play as the Auburn Tigers get back in the win column, a win over New Mexico as they now look ahead to Arkansas in their fourth straight home game. Cole Cubelic, Simone Eli here to break it all down and look ahead to Saturday. Let's go head to head. Welcome in, everybody. Cole, Simone joining you yet again, week 4 of the college football season. Auburn enters this game against Arkansas 2-1 after the win over New Mexico, bouncing back, of course, from the loss a couple of weeks ago against Cal. Cole, in the grand scheme of like, hey, we're back in the win column, that's a positive. I think there's concerns there. We talked about that pre-show, but overall, mentality-wise on this from this game, where are you with this team and how things are moving forward now?
I think there are some positives. I think there are some concerns that you come out of that game with. At the end of the day, you get a win. You're happy about that. You move on. You try to build on the positives. You try to correct the negatives. And you try to use a little bit of momentum heading into SEC play in a pretty big change. You have a new quarterback now. So you have a new leader on offense, a new leader on your football team.
Yeah.
The guy that you heard the broadcast crew say they think has a little bit more of the locker room than maybe Peyton Thorne did. If that's the case, that might end up being great for this Auburn football team. But that's also the 133rd ranked defense in college football, and only thanks to Tennessee setting all sorts of school and SEC records did they bump Kent State to the 134th ranked defense in college football. So there's only so much I think we can really build our opinions on with this. We're still going to have to learn a little bit more as things move forward with Hank Brown now at quarterback.
Yeah, Hank Brown is the new man in charge. I know that there was a lot of excitement, reaction that we saw from Jordan-Hare Stadium, naturally. And like we talked about in previous shows, the most popular guy in every single team is the backup quarterback when things are not going exactly the way you would have hoped. We see the change. We know that he's going to throw the ball. Not going to do a ton with his legs. When it comes to what that looks like offensively, it's limiting in just the fact that that's what his go-to is. Are you concerned as to what things look like on that side of the ball, given that maybe that's not one of his go-to options, so to speak?
Well, as long as I think Coach Breeze and the offensive staff have an understanding that they have to work around that now, because it's something that defenses had to respect before and something that helped your offense prior. So now you saw it late in this game, Simone, against New Mexico, where the backside of the run game started coming along and making plays, or at least getting close to making plays, where next week, especially 2 weeks from now, those plays probably going to be made. So whether it's quick game, bootlegs, different types of protection, you have to shore up against that.
Yeah.
Because your offensive line's not good enough to just go run the football. You can't just say, okay, we're going to run right at you 25 times and it's going to work. They're not that good. Other than right guard, I don't really think you have anybody playing good enough football up front to be able to do that. The tight ends aren't helping out immensely in the run game either. So you got to be a little creative with how you design things. I do think his accuracy in the quick game can be something that helps you there. So if you get one-on-ones on the outside and people want to stack the box against the run, I think he can throw you out of some of it. The concerns with that were, I felt like some of the out routes, hitch routes, some of the shorter routes to the perimeter, they were a little bit late. And this team might not have made those plays, but I think teams in the future will make those plays. So the timing has to improve a little bit. But he showed you nice touch on a deep ball down the field, good accuracy down the field on a deep ball. Yeah. It's pretty apparent that some of his teammates trust him. And if, like I said before, if he has some of that locker room, the momentum will continue to build. Guys will want to play for him, with him. All of that are things that you can improve upon. And Jarquez Hunter had a good game. I mean, 9th career 100-yard rushing game for him. So you get him going, you get him happy, force defenses to respect that.
Sure.
I do think Hank Brown can work in some other ways.
Yeah, I want to bring up Jarquez Hunter because you really kind of called for that the last couple of weeks that you wanted to see him get more involved. It was almost like you texted Coach Freeze yourself. Maybe you did. I don't know. But 20 carries, 152 yards, gets in the end zone as well. And, Damari Alston also put up impressive numbers. Jeremiah Cobb, it was a group effort. Jarquez Hunter leading the charge, of course. And I think that you've alluded to this, that, listen, if Auburn's going to be one of the top echelon teams in the Southeastern Conference, they're going to have to run the ball. And I think that hopefully that's maybe where this is trending at this point.
I thought all three backs ran the ball hard, looked good. First off, it's a run first offense anyway. That part has to go to make everything else operate. The RPO game's not going to be, it's called run pass option. So if the run part's not there, there will be no option. The quicker hitting run plays are something that I'd like to see a little bit more of. Because when Jarquez gets going downhill, he's hell on wheels. They were solid in pass protection also. So not just carrying the football.
Yeah.
And that's what I think Auburn needs to see some other players do a better job of, whether it's at tight end, at receiver, even on the offensive line, when it's not necessarily dependent on you to make that play. Are you doing all the other things outside of not having the football in your hand to help that play go? Coach Freeze has referenced a couple of times, receivers not running a DB by.
Yeah.
Like, my buddy Jordan Rogers calls them for the love of the game routes. Sometimes you got to run a DB off and you're not getting the football. Well, that has to happen at full speed. So those are some of the little things, too, that can still be shored up around Hank Brown that I think can help him be successful.
Where do you view the defensive side, head to the other side of the ball? I think that Coach Freeze has alluded to, maybe not things looking exactly the way that he wanted them to necessarily in this week's press conference. What do you take from that? What kind of inside information have you gotten as to where they kind of are right now with how that side of the ball has developed under DJ Durkin?
Well, I think you're happy about most of the effort, not all of it, but most.
Yeah.
I think some of the guys up front, like Kerryon Crawford, when you look at most of the defensive linemen, like Keldrick Falk is essentially, it feels like putting a lot of the defense on his shoulders. Jalen McLeod makes things happen. Eugene Asante did some good things. And having said that, I think they're being asked to do some different things.
Sure.
I think that versatility is something he thinks is going to be important down the road, because we all know offense dictates personnel. So if it's 2 tight ends or 2 backs, you want to be a little bit heavier. If you're spread out, you want to be nickel or dime. He wants to be able to say, okay, well, we don't necessarily have to exchange everybody, because this player can back off the ball and play linebacker, or he can walk up and rush the passer. So I think he's trying to develop a little bit of that. So it might not look exactly the way some people want to, but they still don't have a disruptive force on the line of scrimmage amongst that defensive line. And so they've got to find that, because like I said, Falk on the edge is fine. A couple of the other edge defenders that are even off the ball at times are great, but you didn't win a lot of the one-on-ones down the field in the secondary. And you can imagine what the level of receiver is going to get to, like with an Andrew Armstrong this week, and then with the Deion Burks at Oklahoma the next week, and so on and so forth with just about every other team you're going to play. They're going to have those kind of guys. Yeah. And the other part, too, is, Simone, we don't need to do names or numbers or anything, but there are 1 or 2 individuals on that defense that don't look like they have any interest in playing physical football or making a tackle or just trying to get a guy to the ground. And that's disappointing. Number one, you wonder, why is that individual still in the game? And number two, you wonder, like, why the level of intensity can't be higher, because it should be across the board.
Do you kind of have that, like, okay, let's reset. This is a new chapter. Obviously, you have a new quarterback. That in and of itself is going to bring a new chapter, so to speak. But also, this is SEC play. This is when it matters most. Like, there's got to be a change in just mindset or mentality, maybe in practice, or like, hey, there's a sense of urgency. Like, we can't let things slip up early on, because it'll go downhill quick.
I think some of that happens naturally. So the attention will be ramped up this week. There'll be more media coverage. There'll be more people talking about it.
Sure.
There will be Jordan-Hare Stadium will be different.
Yeah, you're right.
Game, and that's like that'll up the ante a little bit on the intensity and maybe the want to and the desire. That happens naturally, and sometimes that has a pretty big impact on how you play. The other part too is you put that film on and you see Taylor Green running down the sideline, leaving the pocket, and it's like, I better get my act together and my pursuit angles better change. You see Jaquindon Jackson run between the tackles and bowl over linebackers and safeties.
Yeah.
And I better buckle my chin strap.
Mm-hmm.
So I think some of that also, you get awakened a little bit by what you see on film. At least you should. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I know that there are some guys on this Arkansas team, like when these tackles see 40, Landon Jackson on film, they better be having an expletive moment and knowing that they better get their technique and fundamentals together, and they better bring their hard hat, because like this dude is not going to be fun to deal with.
Yeah.
So I think all of that sort of happens naturally, so to speak, and coaches will help intensify that a little bit. They'll show you what they've got. And also too, like this is Bobby Petrino can call plays at the end of the day. So you better be in the right place at the right time, know your assignments, because he's going to find, create it, and he's going to try to exploit it. So all of those things, I think, play into hopefully seeing a better effort across the board, even for the guys whose effort we're not questioning right now.
Yeah, it'll be a 2:30 kickoff there at Jordan-Hare Stadium as both teams set to open conference play. Cole, when you look at the Razorbacks, are they similar to what we've seen in recent memory under Sam Pittman? Are they different? What do they offer offensively that we can relate to from an Arkansas team? And maybe what is different than what we've seen in past years?
What they offer that you can relate to, I think, is probably scheme that is a vertical passing attack that still wants to be a team that runs the football first. So you'll get a lot of different formations. You'll get pre-snap movement, but a guy that is not going to be afraid to challenge you vertically. Yeah. And Bobby Petrino, if you give him one-on-ones or you give him certain types of coverages, he's going to go down the field. He's going to attack it. However, they will stay physical. They will run the football, and he'll run his quarterback. Now, depending on who he's had there, is dependent on how much he's done that in the past. But how does this personnel look different from last year? Very. You have a quarterback that might not be as consistent as KJ Jefferson was, but is more explosive. When Taylor Green turns the corner, like he can outrun DBs. Yeah. And then two, I think you have I'm not going to say that Jaquin Jackson's better than Rocket Sanders. We saw what he just did to LSU. Like he's still phenomenal, but Rocket Sanders wasn't always healthy. But Jaquin Jackson is an SEC back. Like he is a freaking hammer, Simone. And like I said, you better bring your hard hat. You better buckle your chin strap because he will run you over. The offensive line, probably not exactly what they want it to be. You're going to get an inline tight end that has the speed to run past you, and a guy that's probably like a prototypical new school tight end that still has a little bit of physicality, can help you in the run game. So they've turned this offense over because they've done it at key spots, and that's where they've improved. And the play call helps a lot also. But that works both ways because now this defense is very different. They lost a lot of guys in the portal on defense, and the linebacker position specifically. You've got one starting at Wisconsin, one starting at Ole Miss. So you had to interchange new bodies there. And I think it's forced them to be a team that plays a little bit more three down because they're not as stout up front. I don't think they could get what they wanted in the portal on the defensive line. So they just decided to go linebacker and get more athletic. So Landon Jackson's going to be tough to deal with. Cam Ball, Eric Gregory, pretty good on that D-line, but they're not deep there. And that's where I think Auburn's got to take advantage. But that's the give and the take of the portal. It's, hey, we hit home run here and we struck out 3 times over here. Or we hit a double here. And like, we're just hoping to lay down a bunt over here and like not have this be a massive liability. So that's why we're hearing about general managers and directors of player personnel being so important in today's college football, because these voids hit quick. You look at the injuries on some teams. I mean, look at Georgia's defensive line. They got a couple guys dinged up and they're totally different right now. You just don't expect to hear that. Alabama loses a tackle week 1. They didn't look good on the offensive line. Like that one guy made that much of a difference. Yeah. Just kind of where we are in today's college football.
Yeah, it really is different than it's ever been. No question about that. When you think about Hank Brown and getting some reps, obviously a full game, a complete game in a non-conference matchup, do you think that maybe played into the reason to roll with somebody different? And how much do you think that serves as beneficial to him to have gone through the motions at least one time before he does see an SEC defense, be it the best defense in the league or one of the more middle tier type teams, maybe where Arkansas lies?
I cannot utilize words as to how valuable that was for him heading into this game. Just mentally and emotionally, everything that you have now gone through will not be brand new, especially. I think that is invaluable. There's no replacement for that. Do I think that ultimately that's the reason that you decided to go ahead and make that move? Not the one, but I do think it was taken into consideration. You have to look at that, Simone, and say, we can give him all of this. And then if we were to have to do it next week, at least now he's got it and he knows it. And Coach Freeze has not ruled out seeing Peyton Thorne again. So and by all accounts, he's handled himself well. We saw him in the broadcast sort of helping out a little bit on the sideline. So it feels like the way that he has sort of accepted this new role for himself has been a positive, and that could be a real positive for the entire team.
Yeah, no question about that. This will be Auburn's 4th straight home game to open the season. Then they're going to welcome in Oklahoma. I don't want to look too far ahead, but I want to discuss the significance of this game because Oklahoma, you covered Oklahoma at home this year. You know what type of threat they can pose. Then Auburn's going to go be on the road for all of the month of October, most of it. I think all of it. This is a very crucial game in that regard in terms of what the next 4 to 5 weeks look like for the Auburn Tigers. Is that something that I mean, not that's in the back of your mind, but just as the type of the analyst, you look at the SEC as a whole. You know what this is. You cover these games every single week. It's not do or die, but it's important in regards to where the momentum goes as you move forward into week 5 and week 6 and beyond.
This is conference play, and you go 1-0 in conference play, and you try to stack those, and that determines where you are in the league and potentially having to play for a conference championship. Now, we don't think Auburn is where some of the other teams are towards the top of this league right now, but that's still your goal at the end of the day. So you can erase a lot of that Cal loss stacking up conference wins. Number 2, you need a lot of momentum heading into what lies ahead. And I don't think the coaches will really coach differently. I don't think they'll approach it that way per se.
Sure.
But if you can build some momentum and then getting a better Oklahoma team in here, that's massive. A little bit more momentum maybe off that win to play Georgia and then Missouri, that also going to be huge.
Yeah.
Because you're going to need a lot of things to go your way to win all or even most of those games. So, yeah, I think it's big. I think you look at it from the standpoint of there's still some things from an Auburn perspective that lean their way. You win this game, it means a lot. You stack it up. It's a former West Division opponent. We've seen a lot of weird Auburn-Arkansas games, both in Auburn and Fayetteville and some in Little Rock. And also, keep in mind, Oklahoma's coming off the Tennessee game at home. This will be their first road SEC game as a member of the SEC. And there are people in Norman, Simone, that are saying that this is the biggest regular season game in the history of Oklahoma football. So they're going to have to restart their engines after that.
Yeah.
It's not always easy to do that. And specifically, depending on how that game goes, we don't really know yet. So there are some things that would lean your way no matter how it plays out, if you can find a way to grab this Arkansas game.
Yeah, no question. It'll be a 2:30 kick at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Auburn is a 3-point favorite, and the over-under is probably bigger than what I thought it would be. It's 58. Do you think that just doing the math, which I'm not, again, I mean, you know where I'm at with my betting and my math and my any sort of prediction with scores, it's not great. But do you think that Auburn, where this offense is today, is capable of putting up enough points to win this game? And if so, what is that number?
Capable.
That's me asking you your prediction in a very roundabout way, sure. But also,
capable of winning this game, absolutely. But not just because of the offense being able to put up points. I think you're playing a quarterback that has shown he can and will make mistakes. And I think you have a defensive coordinator that, as we discussed earlier, can be versatile and do different things and show you different things. And to me, that's going to be the key. Can Auburn win up front when they're on defense? Yeah. And if they can get to the backfield, first and foremost, if they slow Jaquin and Jackson down, it's going to go a long way because that's going to ease the RPO play action game, and it's going to make Taylor Green a little more one-dimensional, which is huge because they can get him on bootlegs out to the perimeter. And then obviously the design quarterback runs are also going to be there. And if you're overly concerned about a running back, that opens up more space for him. But if you can get to him, make him uncomfortable, hit him a couple of times, he will give you the ball, both on the ground and through the air. Yeah. And I think that's probably what Vegas looks at home in a loud environment where communication may be difficult. We saw him holding the ears in Stillwater a couple weeks ago, specifically there late at the game when there were some clock management issues. Yeah. And people were wondering what the hell is going on. And he's kind of looking over and holding the can't hear, and then finally spikes the ball. Those are the things that Auburn has to have and use to their advantage if they're going to find a way to win this game. I think they squeak it out at home with a very low risk, I don't want to say vanilla game plan, because I do think that there'll be some smoke and mirrors, some visual deception, but I don't think it's going to be one where they try to air it out and they try to go score 47 points to win this game. Sure. I think a little more ball control, use some motions and shifts and some play actions and different looks to try and get that defense off balance, and then try to get Jarquez going downhill because, like I said, this defense not deep. I wouldn't be surprised to see some tempo early from Auburn to try to wear that defense down and then maybe slow down as the drive goes on or even later in the game. If you get your one-on-ones, you take your shots, but I wouldn't expect a ton of them. Yeah. And then find a way to be super aggressive defensively and force Taylor Green into mistakes. I definitely would take the under here if it were me, and I would probably say Auburn somewhere around 24-21 finds a way to get this win.
Yeah, I'm similar, probably 28-24, 28-21, something like that. I think that the start is going to be crucial because I think that this Auburn team, similar to like the Auburn crowd. There are emotional highs and lows that come with games. And when you see it go well early, and this is really any fan base, when it's going well early, you're gonna be in there hanging in strong. It starts slow, you're gonna see some folks, doing the things they do on Twitter and making everybody, be exhausted. So that's probably cliche for everybody, but it's most certainly true in this fan base.
It is. And I'll just add this quickly. Last week, 5th consecutive games with multiple turnovers for the Auburn offense. Have to eliminate those if you're going to start winning these games that are ahead of you on the schedule.
Yeah, no question. That's definitely across the board in the SEC. It will certainly be the case for Auburn as they welcome in Arkansas for the first conference game of the year, week 4 of the season. Auburn will look to go to 3-1 before welcoming in Oklahoma week 5. For Cole Cubelic, I'm Simone Eli. This has been Head to Head. We will see you next week.
Brought to you by Alabama Beef Farmers and Ranchers.